already been said a couple times, but I'll say it again. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. You all have the, in my opinion, probably the most difficult job there is on this earth. And it's very underrated, so I'm glad there's a day to celebrate you all. And I have an amazing mother, and I'm very thankful for her, and I wouldn't trade her for the world. But I also have several that I call adopted mothers, several in this audience who've helped me tremendously since I've been down here, so thank you all also. Since it's Mother's Day, I decided I would start by telling a story about my mom. And in case you don't know, which one of these is the, I did something wrong. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is my mom. And see, my mom, like I said, she's been a great mother, and I've loved my time with her. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But growing up, when I was in elementary school or so, or middle school, I used to play a lot of video games. And one specific night, I was playing video games in our living room on our TV, and my mom comes out of the kitchen and says, "Hey, go ahead and get off the TV. We're about to eat. Come and get your food." And I said, "No, I want to stay here." She said, "Excuse me?" And I said, "I want to play the game." And before you think I'm really disrespectful, my mother and I, we would joke around a lot. So that's just kind of the relationship we have. We'd always pick on each other. And she says, "No, pretty sure you're getting up, you're going to come in here and eat." And I said, "Make me." And so my mother, in an attempt to get me out of the chair and throw me on the ground, to one of two things. Number one, tickle me. Number two, tickle me. I was very ticklish, and she took advantage of that. So I'm sitting this way. My mother's on the side of me. She wraps her arms around me this way to pull me onto the floor. And as she puts her arms around me, being defensive, I elbow her arm. And her arm travels up and hits me right in the nose, just like that. And it shocked us both. I mean, it was kind of a hard hit, and I kind of made my head go back a little bit. And she stepped back. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay?" And I told her, I said, "Yeah, it's fine. My nose was swelling a little bit. I could feel it. It was hurting. It was throbbing." And I said, "It's fine. It's fine." And she said, "Okay, I'm sorry. Well, finish what you're doing and come in here and eat." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I will." So I go back to playing my game, and my nose starts running really bad. And I didn't think about it. I'm just playing. Every once in a while, I just kind of rub my nose, sniff or whatever. Kind of run my hands through my nose. And the time passed, finished the game, and I get up and I put my controller down, turn the TV off. As I set my controller down, I see blood all up my hands on each side. There's a little blood on my lip and stuff like that. And so I kind of freak out a little bit. So I run into the kitchen where my mom is, and I called her name, and she turned around and said, "What?" And she sees my face. She goes, "Oh, no, that's a problem." So she cleans me up. I was in a little bit of pain. My nose was throbbing pretty bad, like I said, and I had a good headache. And she just cleaned me up, and we let the swelling go down. A couple of days went by. The swelling started to go down a little bit, and I noticed something a little off. I didn't say anything off the bat, but my nose was a little bit crooked. And so I waited too long to say anything. And a couple weeks go by, and I finally bring it to the attention of my mom, and she looks at it a little close. She said, "Yeah, you're right, it is crooked." But it had already been too long at that time, and long story short, we were at the doctor's office for something unrelated a few months later. And out of curiosity, we just asked the doctor, he said, "Can you just look at my nose and just see if there's anything wrong with it?" And so he looks, and I'm not sure all he looked at, whatever, but he said, "Yep, your nose has been broken and it has grown back wrong." So I might regret telling this, because now when you look at me, you'll probably start looking at my nose and say, "You know what, it is crooked." But he gave me two options, so we could re-break it and fix it, or we could do surgery. Both sound horrible, so I just figured I'll just keep it this way. So now I have something to pick on my mom for if she's upset with me. "You broke my nose." So that's a story about my mother, and I have a story about 3 other mothers in the Bible, but spoiler, none of them break their children's noses. I'm going to start with a story of Jochebed, and this is Moses' mother. This story, it takes place in Egypt. It takes place in Egypt in Exodus in the Bible. It's when the Hebrews were still enslaved by the Egyptians. Now, a new Pharaoh had come into power in Egypt, and he decided the Hebrews were a threat. He said, "They're multiplying too fast, and they're going to take over us." He said, "We can't let this happen." So he commands that the Hebrew babies, as soon as they were born, were to be thrown in the Nile and killed. And the midwives, Egyptian midwives, who were delivering the children, decided they weren't going to do this. And Pharaoh figured out about this a little while later, and they said, "Things have gotten way too out of hand. Now we're going to go and sweep the city. Any children under 2 years old is going to be killed and thrown in the Nile, and all the Hebrew babies who are being born will still be killed." And in Exodus 2, 1 through 3, it's kind of where we follow up after the little introduction I gave here. It says, "Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile." So there's two different things right here that I noticed. Two different ways that Jochebed risked her life for her child. I'm sure one of them is kind of easier for us to see. The second one is going to take a little bit of explaining. First one, she hid him for 3 months. This is the way she risked her life, because can you imagine trying to hide a young baby? What do they do a lot? They cry a lot. And it wouldn't take very much for just an Egyptian to be passing by, or anybody for that matter, be passing by the house and hear a baby crying and want to search the house. And if they found baby Moses, him being a male, they would have killed him. Odds are they would have killed her too for trying to hide him. So that's one way that she risked her life for Moses. Second way, it's going to take a little bit more explaining here. It says in verse 3, she made a basket and placed it in the reeds among the bank of the Nile. And the Nile is the biggest river in the world. That's something to kind of put in perspective. When you think of big bodies of water, what's something else you can kind of think about? Big animals that inhabit the water. Now, we have alligators here in Florida. And we had a couple in Mississippi before I moved down here. I never seen any, but now that I've been down here, I've seen several. And they're terrifying. I think they're awesome, but they're also terrifying. I wouldn't want to mess with one that was bigger than me. And the Nile has crocodiles. This right here, Steve Irwin's one of my childhood heroes right here. The Nile has crocodiles. So I'm going to give you a small little biology lesson real quick to help you understand about the Nile crocodiles. So alligators here in Florida, they usually top out around 15 feet at the biggest. They can get bigger than that, but usually it's around 15 feet, or about 3 meters, or 3 yards, excuse me. And they have a bite force of around 2,125 pounds per square inch. That's just over a ton. That's pretty impressive. But I know it's kind of hard to put that in perspective sometimes, so think about this. A lion has a bite force of 650 pounds per square inch. That is 3.3 times the bite of a lion that an alligator has. So that's kind of put things in better perspective now, because something that we can see pretty regularly, an alligator. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. All right, now crocodiles, like this one here, crocodiles can get up to around 20 feet long usually, and they have a bite force a little bit more than an alligator. You can probably kind of do the math in your head real quick, just kind of guess what a crocodile's bite force would be. A crocodile, about 20 feet long like this one right here, can have a bite force of around 5,000 pounds per square inch. That's 2.5 tons, and it's the the strongest bite recorded in the world currently. So a little bit more than alligators we deal with here. And it says, let me go back a little bit. It says that Jochebed made a basket and placed him among the reeds of the Nile. Those things live in the water, and the reeds is a little thicket outside the river that she had to go through to get that basket in the water. And so these crocodiles could have been all around her. They could have been everywhere, and that didn't stop her. And I'm sure she knew that too. I'm sure she knew she was risking her life to get her baby down in that water, but she was willing to do it because she loved her child, and she wanted him to live, and she was going to do whatever it possibly would take. So there's one way that a modern-day dinosaur didn't stop Mary from saving her child, and she risked her life just so her son could have the possibility of living. It says in John 15:13, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for others' friends," or family. I'll just replace that last little word, and we'll substitute that for right now. She didn't die doing this, but she risked her life. And to be honest, I believe that she knew that she very well could have died in both of these situations, but she was willing to do that because she loved her child that much, and that didn't stop her. It didn't bother her one bit. We're going to go into a second story of a mother. It's called it's the Harlot Mother. It's a story in 1 Kings 3:16. It's a story of two harlots. If you don't know the story, this took place, like I said, in 1 Kings when Solomon was the king. And he had two harlots come before him. When they came in, they were arguing back and forth, trying to decide whose baby one of them had. And a little bit of backstory on that. Two harlot mothers had babies 3 days apart. And during the night, we'll say Mother A and Mother B. Mother B rolled over onto her child in the middle of the night and suffocated her child, and he died. And both these mothers had baby boys. So that mother, she woke up, saw her child was dead. So she went to the other mother who had a child around the same time as she did. She switched out the babies and gave the mother Mother A, she gave her the dead child. So Mother B now had the living child that was not hers. Mother A woke up, she went to nurse her baby and realized that's not her child. So what do you do in that situation? You go find your child. She went and she talked to the other mother, and she saw that she had her child, and so they have an argument going back and forth. She said, that's my child. Give him back. She said, no, you rolled over on your child. That's mine. You know, they're just going back and forth, arguing. They end up before the king. So she fought to keep her baby. She wants to keep her child. She's going to do whatever it takes. She actually goes in front of the king here, and they're still arguing in front of the king. And, wise Solomon, we all know wise Solomon. He is a very wise king, so he has some pretty interesting things to say here. He says in verse 24, King Solomon made his choice to settle the disagreement. He calls for a sword from one of the servants. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to split the child in half and give half to each mother. So that way they can both, we just have it settled, and they go on their merry way. And verse 26 and 27, it reads, the woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, please, my lord, give her the living baby, don't kill him. But the other mother, Mother B, said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. So we kind of have a pretty interesting disagreement right here. Two different sets of words. And Solomon's seeing this. And after, originally what you think, he's going to split the child in two. How's that wise? That doesn't make any sense. He's going to kill the child. But now we kind of understand where Solomon was coming from. Solomon sees the answers from these two mothers, and he gave his ruling. He said, give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him, for she is his mother. Isn't that incredible? It's a smart man. That's crazy with that mother. She was willing to give up her baby so he could live, meaning she would lose him forever. The odds of that mother, giving away her child to another mother who had already had this disagreement with her, odds are she probably won't ever see her child again. But she's going to take that risk because she loves her child so much. She'd rather spend the rest of her life missing her child, the one that she carried for 9 months and she'd cared for since birth. She'd rather lose that child so he can have a life. And she put herself behind him. She said his life's going to be more important than hers is. And, she would do everything she can to keep from letting him die. And it said Philippians 2, 3, and 4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, like the mother could have done, but each of you to the interests of others. She put her child above herself, meaning she would lose him forever. That's not what happened, thank goodness. But she was willing. Can you just imagine that mother in that spot when she was willing to give up her child? Can you just imagine her just dropping to her knees and just saying, no, just take him. She can have him. I'll be fine. Just imagine how difficult that would be just to give your child away. That's love. I'm going to move on now to Mary. Jesus is Mary. Mary was there for Jesus in many ways throughout his life. She was a great mother. We have several stories of her being a mother throughout the Bible. Right now, I'm not really going to focus on the beginning of Jesus' life when he was a child. I'm going to focus on the end, the crucifixion. In Matthew 27, verses 55 and 56, it says, many women were there watching from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. So that leads us to assume Mary was there with Jesus through his crucifixion. She followed him, came from Galilee, and she was there with him. Mary, she stayed with Jesus through all the horrible things that he faced through his crucifixion, and she never left his side when it was possible. It would have been so much easier for Mary to just leave, not so much just to abandon her son, but so she wouldn't have to see it because there's nothing she could do. But she stayed there. Mary had to watch a murderer picked over her son to be released. There's a crowd of people, and Pilate says, I can give you back Jesus, a person I can find no wrong in, or I can give you back Barabbas, a murderer. And the whole crowd chants and say, give us Barabbas. You keep Jesus. We want him killed. Give us Barabbas. Mary had to watch that. Mary had to watch Jesus get flogged. This is a horrible way of torture that they had back then. And people would usually be whipped. The whips had all kinds of stuff from glass to stones to bone, anything on the end of that whip. And it would do horrible things to a person's back. And usually, the people would actually, if they had, it's estimated around 40 lashes what it took to kill somebody. And people died from this regularly, from blood loss, from organs being punctured, you name it. And Jesus survived this. It's estimated he had, upper 30s lashes, so they wouldn't kill him if it took around 40. Mary had to see a crown of thorns on his head. At this point, the Roman soldiers had actually taken Jesus away into the palace and mocked him and put the crown of thorns on his head. That was in private. But when he came back out, though, she saw the crown of thorns that was placed on his head. She had to see her child with this, with the blood streaming down his head. And those were not small thorns. Those were big thorns that had on that crown. It was an awful sight. She had to watch Jesus carry his cross as much as he could. Jesus had to have help along the way because he was so weak. It's speculated that he carried his cross around 1/8 to 1/2 of a mile, somewhere around in that range. I mean, the cross was heavy. He had blood loss, and like I said, he had to have help along the way. He was just so weak, and he just couldn't carry it any longer. She had to watch that. Jesus was mocked while he was on the cross. She had to watch people walk by, spit on him, yell at him, say, if you're so powerful, come down from that cross. If you can do all these things that you claim you can do, just come down. Why are you up there? Just making fun of him. Like I said, spitting at him, just all these different things they're throwing at him, and all these words, and just the disgrace they're throwing at him. And she had to watch her son die on the cross. It says it took him about 6 hours to die on that cross, and Mary was there the whole time. She stayed there. And Mary, she was helpless. She could not do one physical thing for Jesus. She could not step in. She couldn't go in there and grab her child out of what he was going through and stop what was happening. She couldn't go in there and take her child home like she wanted to and just help him escape from what's going on. One way, because that's physically she wouldn't have been able to do that because of all the people and everything that were crowded around, the people who were wanting this done. But she also knew this is what had to happen. And she was there. It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you'll fulfill the law of Christ. Like I said, Mary couldn't do much physically in carrying Jesus' burdens, but she was there emotionally. That's something that we really don't think about that much, how strong emotional support really is. For example, let's say this. If I'm going to the doctor, I want my mom there. I'm about to be 22 years old. My mother is about 14 hours away from me, so that can't happen anymore. So I have been going to the doctor a handful of times by myself. That doesn't mean I don't want my mom there. Say if I'm getting a shot or something like that, and I have an unhealthy fear of needles. It's pretty bad. But thank goodness over the years I've been able to get used to that, and I can take shots now without getting out of the chair, running out of the doctor's office, down the hallway of the hospital, and out the front door. That's a true story. I'll talk about that later. I'm able to get shots without that happening now. But if I had it my way, my mom would be with me. If I had to go get a shot tomorrow, I'd want her with me. Just because that emotional support. She can't do one thing about that shot. That shot is most likely going to hurt. Sometimes you can get shots that won't. Most likely, though, that shot's going to hurt. She can't do one thing about that physical pain. But about that emotional support of her being there, that means everything. That's something we overlook so often. But that's something that's extremely powerful that we don't really take notice to. Something that mothers just are very good at giving. Emotional support, just being there. Just not being alone. And this is some serious, serious love I've talked about. From the bravery of Jochebed. And there's a type of love I'm going to talk about that's even greater than that. Greater than bravery of Jochebed. Greater than the selflessness of the harlot. And greater than the thoughtfulness of Mary, of her being there. And that's the love of Jesus. There's a love that beats all those, that trumps all other loves. There's love, it's the kind of crazy love that made Jesus willing to suffer through everything that I just said. Everything he just went through made him willing to do that. It's that kind of crazy love. It's the kind of crazy love that made him willing to lay down his life for us, sinners. We sin. That's what makes us human. We sin almost constantly. in just different ways. Some seem worse to others than us, but sin just happens throughout our lives, and that's because we're human. And Jesus still is willing to lay down his life for us. It allows him to forgive us of all those things we've done. It says in the Bible that God separates our sins as far from the east as from the west. And that's something that we can't understand. I can't fathom that. And I'm assuming you can't either, because that's a distance that we don't have any way of measuring, that we can't even understand. It's an infinite distance. And God says he's going to separate us from our sins in that way. It's crazy. And it's that kind of crazy love that makes Jesus still want us. After everything I just said, even those people who were physically there who crucified him, the people who actually nailed him to that cross, and people who were actually there who were mocking him, who were spitting on him, those people that did all that, he still wants them too. He still wants you and I. No matter what we've done, he still wants us. It's that kind of crazy love that gives us the chance to live with him forever in paradise. It's something that still blows my mind. How all these things that can happen in our lives, all these things we can do wrong, his love is so much greater than that, that he still gives us a chance to live with him in heaven, in paradise, for eternity. And Jesus makes it simple for us to be able to spend life with him in heaven. It's not easy, but it's simple. It says in the Bible, we're supposed to hear the word. We're supposed to believe the word that we hear. We're supposed to repent of the sins we've committed. We're supposed to confess that Jesus is our God, and we're supposed to be baptized for the remission of sin. Every sin, like I just said, every sin we've committed, not just the ones that aren't so bad, the ones that we think, oh, I cheated on a test in 3rd grade. Okay, yeah, that's going to be forgiven. But I did this sin over here that's just so bad that I'm addicted to. There's no way that can be forgiven. Yeah, it can. And it will be forgiven. There's no sin that is strong enough to completely separate us from God that we cannot be forgiven for. You know why? That's something we can think about. Why? Why would he love me this much? Why is that possible? Why is he willing to do all these things are here that made him willing to suffer, lay down his life, forgive us of our sins, make him still want us, and give us that chance to be in heaven? Because he loves you that much. The love we can't even understand, that is so far out of our minds, and we can't fathom that. He loves you that much. And if you're not a child of God yet, if you're not baptized yet, if you're not, like I said, one of God's children, Jesus' children, or not a child of God yet, you have that possibility to feel this kind of crazy love I'm talking about. Something that is so far beyond our imagination. We will never understand that. You have that opportunity to be able to be baptized for the remission of your sins and become a child of God and understand what that love looks like. Or if you're already a Christian and there's sins in your life that you still have committed since you've been baptized, and things that are still happening in your life that are separating you from him, and you know that you're in the wrong, there's still that forgiveness because of this love that I'm talking about right now. There is still that forgiveness that can correct all that, and that can fix all those things in your life. And you have the opportunity to do this. You have the opportunity to be baptized. You have the opportunity to ask for forgiveness, depending on your situation. And you have the ability to come down to this front row, these 2 front rows I have here in front of me, and just lay it on us. Whatever that is. If you want to be baptized, if you want to ask for prayers to church for encouragement, if you want to ask for forgiveness, if you want to apologize for things you've done, you have that opportunity. And we have a great set of elders and deacons here that are willing to help you with all that also and pray with you. And so I invite you now, if you have anything on your heart, or you have anything like that you need to get out of the way, you can come now as we stand together and as we begin singing.